The journey to Vulcan Prime Base took 3 days. During that time, the crews of both ships worked together in ways that nobody had expected. Human engineers helped repair the Crimson Talon's damaged systems, while Vulcan scientists studied human technology with amazement and growing respect. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Defiance, watching the alien space station grow larger on his main screen. Vulcan Prime Base was enormous, easily 10 times the size of Earth's largest space station. Hundreds of ships moved around it like insects around a hive. Most were sleek patrol vessels like the Crimson Talon, but Jake could see larger ships too. Cruisers, battleships, and massive carriers that could hold entire fleets. Captain, Lieutenant Commander Sarah Blake reported from her station, "I'm counting over 400 ships in the immediate area. Some of them are moving to intercept us." Jake nodded calmly. He had expected this. The Vulcans were bringing unknown aliens into the heart of their military power. Of course they would be careful. "Keep our weapons powered down, but ready. We're here as guests, not invaders." On the Crimson Talon, Commander Zexathara was receiving constant messages from Vulcan High Command. Most of his superiors were angry that he had brought aliens to their most important base. Others were curious about the species that had defeated a Vulcan warship so easily. A few were already planning ways to use human military technology for the Imperium. "Sir," his communications officer said, "Fleet Admiral Cathvar wants to speak with you immediately." The main screen on the Vulcan bridge flickered to life, showing an older Vulcan with silver skin and cold black eyes. Admiral Cathvar had commanded Vulcan forces for over a century. He had conquered more species and claimed more worlds than any other military leader in Vulcan history. "Commander Zexathara," the Admiral said in a voice like ice, "explain to me why you have brought armed aliens to our most secure base." Zexathara took a deep breath. "Sir, these humans are unlike any species we have encountered. They destroyed my ship with a single shot, then offered medical aid to my wounded crew. They fight with honor and show mercy to their enemies. I believe they could be valuable allies." Admiral Cathvar's expression did not change. "Or they could be spies gathering intelligence about our defenses. You may have doomed the entire Imperium with your foolishness." "With respect, sir," Zexathara replied, "if they wanted to gather intelligence, they could have taken it from my damaged ship and left us to die in space. Instead, they saved our lives and escorted us home safely." On the human ship, Technical, Specialist Amy Johnson was working frantically at her communication station. Dozens of alien signals were flooding the area as Vulcan ships moved into position around them. She was trying to translate as many as possible to understand what the aliens were planning. "Captain," she called out, "I'm picking up a lot of military chatter. Most of it is about us. Some ships are asking for permission to attack if we make any hostile moves." Jake felt tension building on his bridge. His crew was ready for anything, but they were outnumbered 400 to 1. If the Vulcans decided to attack, the Defiance would fight to the end, but the outcome was certain. "Any word from Commander Zexathara?" "Yes, sir. He's requesting permission to bring a small human delegation aboard the space station to meet with Vulcan leadership." Chief Medical Officer Danny Rodriguez approached the captain's chair. "Sir, if you're thinking about going over there, I should remind you that we know almost nothing about Vulcan society. This could be a trap." Jake looked around his bridge at the crew that had become like family to him. They had come so far from Earth, farther than any human had ever traveled. They had made first contact with an alien civilization and survived their first battle in space. Now they had to take the biggest risk of all, trusting their former enemies. Sarah, you have the bridge, Jake said finally. Amy, Danny, Lisa, you're with me. We're going to make history. The human shuttle that approached Vulcan Prime Base was tiny compared to the massive station, but every alien ship in the area was watching it. Never before had non-Vulcans been allowed into the heart of their military power. Many Vulcan officers saw this as a dangerous mistake that could lead to the destruction of their empire. When the shuttle docked with the station, Jake Morrison became the first human to set foot on an alien world. The docking bay was huge, with ceilings that stretched up into darkness. Hundreds of Vulcan soldiers lined the walls, their weapons ready but not aimed. The message was clear. The humans were guests, but they were also prisoners if anything went wrong. Admiral Kethvar was waiting for them in the center of the bay. He was taller than Commander Zexathara, with scars on his face and hands that spoke of many battles. When he looked at the human delegation, his eyes showed no warmth or friendship. "I am Fleet Admiral Kethvar, Supreme Commander of all Vulcan forces," he said through a translation device. "You are the first aliens to enter this station as anything other than prisoners or slaves." Jake stepped forward. "I am Captain Jake Morrison of the Earth ship Defiance. We come in peace, seeking friendship between our peoples." "Peace?" The Admiral laughed, but there was no humor in the sound. "Your ship destroyed one of our vessels, with a single shot. You call that peace?" "We call that self-defense," Jake replied firmly. "Your ship attacked us without warning. We responded to protect ourselves. When the fight was over, we offered help to your wounded. That is the human way." Admiral Kethvar studied the small human in front of him. Jake Morrison was much smaller than a Vulcan warrior, but he stood without fear in the heart of an enemy base, surrounded by hundreds of armed soldiers. There was something in his eyes that reminded the Admiral of the greatest Vulcan warriors he had known. "Commander Zexathara tells me that your people have strange ideas about warfare," the Admiral said. "You claim to help your enemies after defeating them." "We help anyone who needs help," Danny Rodriguez said, stepping up beside his captain. "That's what civilization means to us." The Admiral was quiet for a long moment. In 300 years of conquest, he had seen dozens of alien species beg for mercy or try to bargain for their lives. But these humans stood calmly in his presence and spoke of helping others as if it was the most natural thing in the universe. "Your ship," Admiral Kethvar said finally. "It is not the largest vessel in your fleet." It was not a question. Jake realized that the Admiral had been studying the intelligence reports from the first encounter. "No, sir. The Defiance is a destroyer, designed for patrol and escort duties. We have much larger ships." How much larger? Jake thought carefully about his answer. The truth might start a war, but a lie would certainly end badly when it was discovered. "Our largest battleships are over 1 kilometer long. They carry weapons that could destroy this entire station." A ripple of fear went through the Vulcan soldiers. Admiral Kethvar's expression did not change, but Jake could see new respect in his eyes. The humans had just admitted that they could destroy the heart of Vulcan military power, yet they had come here with only a small escort and no demands. "What do your people want from the Vulcan Imperium?" the Admiral asked. "Trade, knowledge, friendship," Jake replied. "We want to learn about the galaxy and find our place in it. We don't want to conquer anyone or be conquered by anyone." Admiral Kethvar made a decision that would change the galaxy forever. For 3 centuries, the Vulcans had ruled through fear and force. They had never met a species that could match Their military power but chose cooperation over conquest. These humans represented something entirely new in galactic politics. "Captain Morrison," the Admiral said formally, "I hereby recognize Earth as a sovereign world and humanity as a free species under the protection of the Velkin Imperium. Any attack on human ships or colonies will be considered an act of war against the Velkin state." Jake felt his heart skip a beat. With those words, humanity had gone from unknown aliens to protected allies of the galaxy's most powerful military force. "Admiral, we are honored by your recognition. Earth offers the same protection to Velkin ships and colonies." As the two leaders shook hands in the ancient human gesture of friendship, both knew that the universe had changed forever. Within months, every major power in the galaxy would know about the alliance between the Velkins and the mysterious humans. Some would seek friendship with the new power. Others would plan for war. But in the docking bay of Velkin Prime Base, human and alien stood together as equals for the first time in galactic history. The small human destroyer that had stopped a Velkin patrol ship cold had become the foundation for a new age of cooperation among the stars. Captain Jake Morrison looked around at the alien faces surrounding him and smiled. Earth's children had finally found their place in the galaxy, not as conquerors or conquered, but as friends to those who chose friendship and a deadly enemy to those who chose war. The universe was about to learn what it truly meant to deal with humanity. Commander Zethkar stood frozen on his bridge, staring at the blank communication screen. The human admiral's words echoed in his mind. 1 standard galactic year to withdraw from 100 light years of space. It was impossible. The hegemony had spent centuries building their empire. They would never abandon so much territory because of threats from a single system. But as he looked at his tactical display, Zethkar felt doubt growing in his mind. The humans had just destroyed an asteroid with a single shot. They had dozens of ships surrounding him, each one larger and more powerful than his own, and they seemed to know everything about hegemony operations. "Sir, what are your orders?" asked his first officer, a young hegemony warrior named Kethalon. "Should we prepare to fight our way out?" Zethkar almost laughed at the suggestion. Fight their way out? Against 50 human ships? It would be suicide. "No. We observe and learn. The High Command needs to know what we are facing here." His tactical officer was still studying the sensor readings from the human weapon demonstration. "Sir, I have completed my analysis of their attack on the asteroid. The power levels are beyond anything in our database. That single shot carried more destructive force than our entire main battery." "How is that possible?" Zethkar demanded. "No species develops weapons that advanced without first conquering other worlds. Where did they get this technology?" What Zethkar did not understand was that humanity had developed their weapons through necessity, not conquest. For over a century, human scientists had focused on one goal, making sure that when aliens finally came to Earth, they would find humanity ready to fight. On the bridge of the USS Valiant, Captain Morrison was receiving new orders from Admiral Hayes. The demonstration had been successful, but it was not enough. The alien commander needed to understand that humanity was not bluffing. "Captain, you are authorized to proceed with demonstration beta," came the Admiral's voice over the secure channel. "Show them what our defensive systems can do." Morrison nodded to his weapons officer. "Commander Chen, activate the orbital defense grid, full display mode." Throughout the Sol system, hidden installations began powering up. On the dark side of Earth's moon, massive railgun batteries emerged from underground bunkers. In the asteroid belt, weapon platforms that had been disguised as space rocks revealed their true nature. Around Mars, defensive satellites came online, their sensors sweeping space for targets. But the real surprise was Earth itself. The planet that the aliens had assumed was just another inhabited world began to transform. Sections of the continents opened up, revealing missile silos that could launch warheads anywhere in the solar system, orbital elevators that had seemed like simple transportation systems revealed themselves to be massive weapon platforms. Even Earth's moon was armed. The human colonies there were not just mining operations. They were military bases, each one capable of defending against an entire fleet. Zethkar watched in growing horror as his sensors detected more and more weapons. "How many defensive installations do they have?" he whispered. "Sir, our computers have stopped counting," his sensor operator reported. "There are too many to catalog. Every planet, every moon, every asteroid appears to be armed." This was the reality of human space. For 100 years, humanity had been turning their entire solar system into a fortress. Every space station served a military purpose. Every mining operation doubled as a weapons factory. Every human civilian was also a trained soldier. The philosophy was simple. If aliens came to humanity's home, they would find not just a few warships, but an entire civilization organized for war. Commander Rick Palmer commanded one of humanity's stealth destroyers, the USS Shadow. His ship had been hiding in the asteroid belt for 3 hours, watching the alien vessel. The Shadow was designed for one specific purpose: hunting enemy ships that tried to escape. Palmer was a quiet man who had spent 15 years perfecting the art of space warfare. His ship was invisible to most sensors, armed with weapons designed to disable rather than destroy, and fast enough to catch almost any vessel in the galaxy. "Sir, the alien ship is showing signs of preparing for hyperspace jump," reported his navigation officer, Lieutenant Karen Walsh. "Their engines are beginning to charge." Palmer smiled. This was exactly what he had been waiting for. "Let them think they can escape. Weapons, prepare the tracking beacon. When they jump, I want that beacon attached to their hull before they complete the transition." The tracking beacon was one of humanity's most closely guarded secrets. Using quantum entanglement technology, it would allow human forces to track the alien ship anywhere in the galaxy. More importantly, it would lead them directly to the hegemony's homeworld. Back on the Crimson Talon, Zethkar had made his decision. "Helm, prepare for immediate hyperspace jump. We need to get this information back to the High Command." "Sir, jumping from inside a system with this many gravity wells is dangerous," his helm officer warned. "The hyperspace calculations are extremely complex." "I do not care about the risks," Zethkar snapped. "If we stay here much longer, these humans might decide to destroy us rather than let us leave." What he did not know was that Admiral Hayes had no intention of destroying his ship. The alien vessel was much more valuable as a messenger than as debris. She wanted the hegemony to know exactly what they were facing. As the Crimson Talon's hyperspace engines reached full power, Captain Morrison received another transmission from Admiral Hayes. "Captain, let them go, but make sure they take our message with them." Morrison understood. As the alien ship began to fade from normal space, entering the hyperspace transition, he opened a final communication channel. "Commander Zethkar, before you leave, I want you to understand something. What you have seen today is just our home. System defenses. This is what we built to protect one planet. Imagine what we have prepared for offensive operations. The words followed the alien ship into hyperspace, carried by the quantum wake of their engines. Zethkar would have plenty of time to think about them during the long journey home. In the shadow of a large asteroid, the USS Shadow attached its tracking beacon to the alien ship's hull just as it completed its hyperspace transition. The beacon was smaller than a human fingernail and completely undetectable by hegemony sensors. "Beacon attached and transmitting," reported Lieutenant Walsh. "We now have a direct line to wherever they are going." Palmer nodded with satisfaction. "Signal Admiral Hayes. Phase 1 is complete. The hunt begins now." What the hegemony did not realize was that their scout ship had just become a guided missile, leading humanity's forces directly to the heart of their empire. The aliens thought they were escaping to safety. Instead, they were leading their enemies home. Admiral Hayes watched the tactical display as the alien ship disappeared from her sensors. Around Earth, the massive defensive installations began powering down, returning to their hidden state. To any observer, the Sol system would once again appear to be a peaceful collection of planets and space stations, but appearances could be deceiving. Humanity had spent a century preparing for this day, and they were ready for whatever came next. The hegemony had made a fatal mistake. They had assumed that a species confined to a single system would be weak and defenseless. Instead, they had found a civilization that had turned isolation into strength, preparing for war while others sought peace. Now the real test would begin. The alien ship would return to its masters with tales of human power. The hegemony would have to decide whether to accept humanity's demands or face the consequences of refusal. Either way, the galaxy was about to change forever. Chief Weapons Officer Ryan Carter watched his screens as the alien ship began to spin slowly through space. The railgun shot had hit exactly where he aimed it. The tungsten projectile had punched a clean hole through the enemy vessel, leaving it crippled and helpless. But Ryan wasn't celebrating yet. His job was to protect the Defiance and her crew, and the battle might not be over. "Target is hit and appears to be disabled," Ryan reported to Captain Morrison. "I'm reading massive power failures across their ship. Their engines are offline." Jake nodded, but kept his eyes on the tactical display. The alien ship was leaking atmosphere and debris, but it was still intact. More importantly, it might have called for help before the attack. "Keep the railgun charged and ready, Ryan. Sarah, scan for any other ships in the area." Lieutenant Commander Sarah Blake worked quickly at her sensor station. The nebula around them made long-range detection difficult, but she needed to know if more aliens were coming. "No other contacts, Captain. We're alone out here." On the damaged Velkin ship, Commander Zexathara pulled himself up from the deck where the impact had thrown him. Emergency lighting cast red shadows across the bridge. The air tasted of smoke and ozone. Around him, his crew worked frantically to assess the damage and restore basic systems. "Engineering report," Zexathara called out, trying to keep his voice steady. The reply came through crackling speakers. "Sir, we've lost main power. The projectile went straight through our engine core. Life support is running on backup power. We have hull breaches on decks 4, 5, and 6. Zexathara felt cold fear in his stomach. In 300 years of Velkin expansion, no enemy had ever done this much damage with a single shot. "What? About weapons? Plasma cannons are offline. We can't even charge them without main power." The Velkin commander looked at the human ship on his view screen. It sat there in space, like a predator watching wounded prey. He had fired 2 direct hits with his most powerful weapons, and the alien vessel had barely noticed. Then they had. responded with something that his sensors couldn't even detect until it was too late. "Communications officer, can you contact Velkin High Command?" "No, sir. Our long-range transmitter was damaged in the attack. We can only send short-range signals." Zexathera closed his eyes for a moment. His ship was crippled, his crew was in danger, and he was facing an enemy unlike anything the Velkin Imperium had ever encountered. For the first time in his military career, he was completely out of options. On the Defiance, Captain Morrison was facing his own difficult decisions. The aliens had fired first, but now they were helpless. Earth's military codes were clear about what to do with disabled enemy vessels, but these weren't humans. This was first contact with an alien species, and whatever he did next would affect humanity's future in the galaxy. "Captain," came a voice from the communications station, "I'm picking up signals from the alien ship. It looks like they're trying to contact us." Jake walked over to Lieutenant Amy Johnson's station. "Can you understand what they're saying?" "Not yet, sir. The language is completely unknown, but I'm running it through our translation programs. The computer is trying to find patterns." Chief Medical Officer Danny Rodriguez approached the captain's chair. He was a calm man from New Mexico who had served in Earth's military for 10 years before joining the Space Navy. "Sir, I'm reading life signs on the alien ship. At least 20 individuals, probably more. Some appear to be injured." Jake felt the weight of command pressing down on him. These aliens had attacked without warning, but they were also in serious trouble. "What's our status, Sarah?" "All systems. Green, Captain. The alien shots barely scratched our armor. We're ready for anything." That was the difference between human and alien military thinking. The Velkins had grown used to quick, clean battles where superior technology won easily. They built ships for speed and firepower, expecting their enemies to surrender quickly. Humans had learned to fight in a universe that was actively trying to kill them. Every human ship was built to survive and keep fighting no matter what happened. Defiance's armor wasn't just thick metal plating. It was layers of different materials designed to absorb and deflect different types of damage. Ceramic composites to stop energy weapons, titanium steel alloys to resist kinetic impacts, reactive armor that could explode outward to reduce penetration. The ship could take hits that would destroy most alien vessels and keep fighting. More importantly, human weapons were designed around basic physics rather than advanced technology. While aliens had developed complex energy weapons and exotic particles, humans had perfected the simple art of throwing things very fast. A railgun was just a magnetic slingshot, but when it threw a piece of tungsten at 12% of light speed, it became the most deadly weapon in known space. "Sir," Amy Johnson called out, "I think I've got something. The alien signals are getting more organized. They're repeating certain patterns. I think they're trying to establish basic communication." Jake made his decision. "Open a channel. Let's see what they have to say." The first voice that Commander Zexathara heard from the human ship was calm and professional. The words were in a language he didn't understand, but there was something in the tone that surprised him. The aliens didn't sound angry or threatening. They sounded concerned. "What are they saying?" Zexathara asked his communications officer. "Unknown, sir. But they're using simple mathematical patterns mixed with their language. I think they're trying to establish basic communication protocols." Zexathara was confused. He had attacked these aliens without warning. He had tried to disable their ship and probably kill their crew. Yet now they were trying to talk to him instead of finishing him off. In Velkin culture, showing mercy to an enemy was seen as weakness. But these humans seemed to operate by different rules. On the Defiance, the translation program was starting to work. Amy Johnson watched as the computer slowly began to identify basic concepts in the alien language: numbers, directions, simple nouns, and verbs. It would take time to build a full translation, but they could exchange basic ideas. "Captain," she said, "I think they're asking about our intentions. They want to know if we're going to attack again." Jake thought carefully about his response. "Tell them that we acted in self-defense. We don't want to fight, but we will protect ourselves if threatened. Ask if they need assistance with their damage." Amy translated the message into simple mathematical concepts and basic words that the computer had identified. When the reply came back, she looked surprised. "Sir, they're asking why we're offering to help them. They seem confused by the idea." "Tell them it's what humans do," Jake replied. "We help people in trouble, even if they were our enemies." On the Velkin ship, this concept was almost impossible to understand. Zexathara had spent his entire life in a military where strength was everything. The strong conquered the weak, and the weak served or died. But these humans had just demonstrated overwhelming military superiority, and now they were offering medical aid to the people who had attacked them. "Sir," his medical officer reported, "we have 3 crew members seriously injured and life support failing on 2 decks. If the humans are really offering help, we need it." Zexathara made the hardest decision of his career. Accept their offer, but be ready for anything. This could still be a trick. Within an hour, human shuttles were approaching the damaged Velkin ship. The shuttles were small, angular craft that looked as deadly as their mothership. But instead of weapons, they carried medical supplies, repair equipment, and engineers ready to help save alien lives. As the first humans stepped aboard the Crimson Talon, Commander Zexathara realized that everything he thought he knew about warfare had just changed. These humans fought like demons when threatened, but they also saved their enemies when the fighting was over. It was a combination of deadly force and unexpected mercy that would reshape the galaxy's understanding of what humanity represented. 3 weeks had passed since the Crimson Talon fled from the Sol system. Commander Zethkar now stood in the Grand Council chamber of the Hegemony homeworld, facing the most powerful beings in the galaxy. The High Command sat in their elevated seats, looking down at him with expressions of anger and disbelief. Supreme Commander Vashati was the oldest and most feared leader in Hegemony history. She had personally overseen the conquest of over 200 worlds. Her voice could order the death of entire species with a single word. Now she stared at Zethkar with cold fury. "You fled from a single system," she said, her voice echoing through the chamber. "You ran from primitives who should have been easy prey. Explain yourself." Zethkar had prepared for this moment during the long journey home. He had reviewed his sensor logs countless times, making sure every detail was accurate. What he had to report would change everything the Hegemony believed about warfare and technology. "Supreme Commander, the humans are not primitives," he began. "They possess technology that surpasses our own in every category. Their ships are larger, faster, and more heavily armed than anything in our fleet. Their defensive systems are beyond our ability to overcome." "Impossible," declared War Marshal Krondar from his seat. "No species achieves such advancement without first conquering others. Where are their conquered worlds? Where are their slave populations? No empire can build such weapons without vast resources." This was the question that had puzzled Zethkar throughout his journey home. The humans claimed to control only one system. yet they had built a military force that could challenge the entire hegemony. How was it possible? They appear to have focused all their resources on military development, Zethkar explained. Their entire civilization is organized around the concept of defense. Every human is a soldier. Every installation is a fortress. Every ship is a weapon of war. Intelligence Coordinator Yashka leaned forward in her seat. She was responsible for gathering information about potential threats to the hegemony. Show us the sensor recordings. We must see this supposed superiority for ourselves. Zethkar activated the holographic display in the center of the chamber. The recorded images from his encounter with the human fleet filled the air above the assembled leaders. They watched in silence as the human ships revealed themselves, their massive hulls bristling with weapons. But the real shock came when the recording showed the destruction of the asteroid. The assembled commanders watched as a single human weapon vaporized a chunk of rock the size of a small moon. The energy readings were displayed alongside the image, showing power levels that made even the hegemony's best weapons look like toys. This must be some kind of trick, War Marshal Krondar insisted. No species develops such weapons without testing them in battle. The humans have never fought a major war. Have they not? Asked Intelligence Coordinator Yashka quietly. She had been studying the human data more carefully than the others. Commander Zethkar, in your interactions with the humans, did they mention any knowledge of our empire? Zethkar nodded grimly. They knew details about our conquest of the Corvin system. They mentioned the enslavement of Zelani children. They seem to have extensive files on our operations across multiple sectors. This information sent a chill through the assembled leaders. The Corvin conquest had happened 40 years ago in a distant sector. The Zelani enslavement was even older and had been conducted in complete secrecy. How could the humans know about events they should never have witnessed? They have been watching us, Supreme Commander Vashati said slowly. For decades, perhaps longer. They have been sending scouts into our territory, gathering intelligence, learning our methods. The implications were terrifying. If the humans had been observing hegemony operations for decades, they knew everything. Fleet movements, base locations, strategic weaknesses, political divisions within the leadership. The hegemony had no secrets from these mysterious humans. But the worst revelation was yet to come. As the council debated what to do about the human threat, an aide approached Supreme Commander Vashati with an urgent message. She read it quickly, her expression growing darker with each word. It appears the humans have sent us a communication, she announced to the chamber. It arrived simultaneously at every hegemony facility in the galaxy, every command center, every fleet base. Every government building received the same message at exactly the same time. The technical implications of this were staggering. To send a message simultaneously to thousands of locations across the galaxy required technology that the hegemony did not possess. It meant the humans could communicate with anywhere in known space instantly, bypassing all security systems and defenses. What does the message say? Asked War Marshal Krondar. Supreme Commander Vashati activated her personal communicator, and the human message played for all to hear. Admiral Hayes's voice filled the chamber, calm and professional as always. Leaders of the hegemony, this is Admiral Patricia Hayes of the Earth Defense Force. By now your scout ship has reported our capabilities to you. You have seen what we can do in defense of our home. You should know that our offensive capabilities are far greater. The message continued, and with each word the assembled leaders felt their confidence cracking. We know the location of your homeworld. We know the positions of your fleets. We know the locations of your slave camps and resource extraction facilities. We have been watching you for 50 years, documenting your crimes against innocent species. Intelligence. Coordinator Yashika felt sick as she realized the full scope of human intelligence operations. 50 years of observation meant they had witnessed every major hegemony operation in recent history. They knew everything. We offer you the same choice. You offer others, the message continued. Withdraw from all occupied systems within 100 light years of Earth. Release all enslaved populations in those sectors. Cease all aggressive expansion operations. You have one standard galactic year to comply. The message paused, and, when it continued, Admiral Hayes's voice carried a note of steel that made even the Supreme Commander shiver. If you refuse these terms, humanity will consider the hegemony to be an active threat to galactic peace. We will respond accordingly. This is your only warning. The message ended, leaving the chamber in absolute silence. For the first time in hegemony history, someone had delivered an ultimatum to them. Someone had threatened their empire and actually had the power to back up that threat. How did they deliver this message to every facility simultaneously? War Marshal Krondar asked weakly. More importantly, said Intelligence Coordinator Yashka, how did they know the location of every facility? Some of our bases are hidden, even from our own military. Supreme Commander Vashati stood slowly from her throne. She was beginning to understand that the hegemony faced a threat unlike any in their history. The humans were not just technologically superior. They were strategically superior as well. They had spent decades preparing for this confrontation, while the hegemony had remained ignorant of their existence. Send orders to all sector commanders, she announced. I want a full review of our military capabilities. I want to know exactly what forces we can bring to bear against the human threat. But even as she gave the orders, Vashati knew the truth. The humans had chosen their moment perfectly. They had revealed themselves only when they were ready for war. They had gathered intelligence for decades before making their move. They had demonstrated overwhelming technological superiority while offering reasonable terms for peace. The hegemony had two choices: accept human demands and abandon a century of conquest, or face a war they could not win against an enemy they did not understand. Either way, the age of hegemony dominance was coming to an end. The galaxy's greatest predator had finally met something even more dangerous than themselves. Lieutenant Commander Sarah Blake was the first person on the Defiance to spot the alien ship. She had been watching her sensors carefully when a new contact appeared on her screen. The ship was unlike anything in Earth's databases. It was long and smooth, with a dark red color that seemed to absorb light. Strange energy readings came from several points on its hull. Captain Morrison to the bridge, Sarah called over the ship's communication system. We have contact with an unknown vessel. Jake Morrison arrived on the bridge within minutes. He was still putting on his uniform jacket as he walked to Sarah's station. What do we have? Single ship, sir. About 400 meters long. It's moving toward us at steady speed. The design is completely alien. I'm seeing energy signatures that don't match anything we've studied before. Jake looked at the image on the main screen. The alien ship was beautiful in a strange way. It moved through space like a living thing, with small adjustments that seemed almost organic. This was humanity's first real contact with an advanced alien civilization. Any signs that they've detected us? Jake asked. Yes, sir. Their ship changed. Course about 10 minutes ago. They're definitely coming to meet us. Jake felt his heart beat faster. This was the moment that Earth had been preparing for. All right, people. This is first contact. Let's do this right. Sarah, bring us to yellow alert, but don't power up weapons yet. Danny, slow us down and take us to a parallel course. I don't want to look aggressive. On the Velkin ship, Commander Zexathara was studying the strange vessel on his screens. The more he looked at it, the more confused he became. The ship was definitely artificial, but its design made no sense. It was too heavy, too angular, and covered with what looked like armor plating. "Sir," his weapons officer said, "the alien ship is slowing down. It's trying to match our course." "Interesting," Zexathara replied. "Maybe they want to talk before we destroy them. How polite." His crew laughed at the joke. The idea that any species could threaten a Velkin warship was absurd. Their shields could stop any weapon, and their plasma cannons could melt through any armor. This would be over quickly. Back on the Defiance, Jake was making the most important decision of his career. Earth's protocols for first contact were clear. Try to communicate peacefully. Show good intentions. Learn as much as possible about alien technology and culture. Communications. Open a channel on all frequencies, Jake ordered. Let's see if we can talk to them. Lieutenant Amy Johnson worked at the communications station. She was a young woman from California who spoke 6 Earth languages and had studied alien communication theories. Channel open, sir. Broadcasting. Mathematical sequences and peaceful greetings. The message from the human ship was powerful. The Defiance's communication array was designed to reach Earth from anywhere in the galaxy. When it transmitted, the signal was stronger than anything the Velkins had ever detected from a ship that size. On the Velkin bridge, alarms started ringing. The sensor officer looked at his readings with growing alarm. "Commander, that ship just powered up some kind of massive energy weapon. The readings are off our charts." Zexathara felt a chill run down his spine. "Are you sure?" "Yes, sir. Whatever they're charging, it's 10 times more powerful than our main plasma cannon. I've never seen energy readings like this." The Velkin commander made a decision that would change everything. He had been taught that when facing a superior enemy, strike first and ask questions later. If this primitive-looking ship had weapons, that powerful, it might actually be dangerous. "Weapons officer, prepare to fire a warning shot. Target their engine section, low power, just enough to disable them." "Yes, sir." "Plasma cannons ready." On the human ship, Jake was waiting for a response to his peaceful message. The alien ship had been silent for several minutes. Sarah was watching her tactical screens when she suddenly shouted a warning. "Captain, the alien ship is charging weapons. I'm reading massive energy buildup in what looks like a forward weapon array." Jake felt his stomach drop. "Are they targeting us?" "Yes, sir. Definitely targeting us. Red alert. All hands to battle stations. Raise shields." The Defiance's shields came online just as the Velkin ship fired. The plasma beam was beautiful and terrible, a stream of pure energy that could melt through a small asteroid. It struck the human ship's forward shields and armor plating with the force of a small nuclear explosion. Every person on the Defiance felt the impact. The ship shuddered, lights flickered, and alarms rang throughout the vessel. But when the energy faded, the ship was still intact. The plasma beam had burned away some of the outer armor plating, but the main hull was undamaged. "Damage report," Jake called out. "Minor damage to forward armor, sir," came the reply from engineering. "Shields held. All systems are working normally." On the Velkin ship, Commander Zexathara stared at his screens in disbelief. His weapons officer fired again, thinking the first shot had missed. The second plasma beam hit the human ship directly in the center. Again, the alien vessel shuddered, but kept coming. "How is that possible?" Zexathara whispered. "Nothing can survive a direct hit from our plasma cannons." What the Velkin commander didn't understand was that human ships were built for a hostile universe. Earth's space program had started by sending ships through asteroid fields and radiation. Storms. Human engineers had learned to build vessels that could survive impacts from space debris traveling at incredible speeds. The Velkin plasma weapons, while deadly to most alien ships, were not much worse than what human ships faced every day in deep space. Jake Morrison looked at the tactical display showing the damage to his ship. The aliens had fired on them twice, without provocation. Under Earth military law, that was an act of war. His orders were clear: protect human interests and respond to any threat with appropriate force. Sarah, I want firing solutions on that ship. Ryan, bring the main railgun online. Chief Weapons Officer Ryan Carter had been waiting for this moment his entire career. His hands moved quickly over his controls as the ship's main weapon came to life. The railgun was a monster, a magnetic cannon that ran almost the full length of the ship. When it fired, it could accelerate a small piece of metal to 12% of light speed. Railgun is online and charged, Captain. Target locked. Jake made the hardest decision of his life. Fire. The railgun fired with no flash of light, no stream of energy, no warning at all. One moment the tungsten projectile was sitting in the weapons chamber. The next moment it was flying through space faster than anything the galaxy had ever seen. On the Velkin ship, no one saw it coming. Their sensors were designed to detect energy weapons and plasma charges. They had no way to track a small piece of metal moving at relativistic speeds. The projectile hit the Crimson Talon's hull like the fist of an angry god. The tungsten slug punched through the alien ship's shields as if they weren't there. It tore through the hull, passed through 3 decks, vaporized 2 crew members, and exited through the engine compartment. The impact sent shock waves through the entire vessel. Commander Zexathara was thrown to the floor as his ship's artificial gravity failed. Emergency lights flickered on as the main power went out. Half of his weapon systems were offline, and atmosphere was leaking into space from dozens of holes. "What happened?" he gasped as he pulled himself back to his feet. "Unknown, sir," his sensor officer replied, his voice shaking. "Something hit us, but I don't know what. There was no energy signature, no warning at all. For the first time in 300 years, a Velkin warship had been crippled by a single shot, and the aliens who had done it were already preparing to fire again.